Hey everybody, my name is Stephen Teal, and this is my wife Allie, and this is going to be our first attempt at starting a podcast slash vlogging series that focuses on interabled marriages and how to cope with things that you might experience in a relationship like that. Um, so a little bit about myself. So let's just jump right into it. I was born with a form of muscular dystrophy called Beckers Muscular Dystrophy, and um, I know a lot of people don't really know what that is. It's a tough one to talk about because there's not a lot of really awareness on it,
No.
except for the shamrocks you probably see every year. Um,
Yeah, that was the only time I'd ever even seen it before was the shamrocks you get, like, in the drive-through at a fast food restaurant or at a grocery store, and it would just say muscular dystrophy, but there wasn't information, and I never, ever knew anyone with any form of MD before I met you.
mhm. That's something I hear from a lot of people is that their first exposure is me,
Yeah.
because it's just not something they talk about a lot.
Mhm.
So for everybody that doesn't know, I'll try to give you as quick of an overview as I can. What is excuse me? What is Becker's muscular dystrophy? Well, according to MDA, I'm going to read off their website.
Mhm.
Becker muscular dystrophy is one of the 9 types of muscular dystrophies, which is a group of genetic degenerative diseases that primarily affect voluntary muscles. Um, it, it's basically just a degenerative muscle disorder. That's the easiest way to explain it to other people. Um,
Well, dystrophin is a hormone, right?
yeah, I'm going to get to that
Oh,
eventually,
okay.
but yeah, if you want to talk about it, you can.
So, from what I understand, and this is just I've done a lot of research just since being with you, um, and that's kind of how it goes. Is if you're in a relationship like this, you're going to find yourself doing a lot of research on your own and kind of deep diving for answers to things. Um, and so I learned that dystrophin is a hormone, and your body I think can make it, doesn't make enough of it from what I understand, and then the receptors that should, um, like, receive dystrophin to function in your muscles don't receive the dystrophin at all or correctly, which I think it depends on the type of MD you have, and so what it makes me think of is diabetes. So, there are different types of diabetes where it all has to do with insulin and insulin production or, like, your body accepting it, and so for some people with diabetes, their body can make insulin but doesn't use it correctly, and some people don't make insulin at all. Some people have crazy reactions to insulin, and it can affect you in all different kinds of ways. And so that's just kind of how I've like related it to understand is your body doesn't use the dystrophin properly, and so that affects your muscles' ability to be strong and then to build. So
Mhm.
like to get stronger,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. According to the website, basically, it's a gene mutation on the X
hmm
chromosome that causes the protein dystrophin not to function. Um, and according to the website, they say dystrophin protein helps keep muscle cell membrane from breaking or tearing when our muscles contract and relax. So anytime you try to build muscle, it keeps your muscles from ripping off, pretty much. Um, this is
That sounds awful.
yeah, no, that does not sound like a fun time. So some of the symptoms of Becker muscular dystrophy, the onset typically appears between 5 to 60 years of age, according to
That's such a
the
huge
MDA.org.
that's a huge span.
Yeah, it is, and it's but most cases happen when you're young.
Yeah, you notice it
As just
then.
for me, I noticed it when I was 8, and then I was diagnosed when I was 11.
But technically,
So
anyone with MD, you're born with
you're
it,
born
right?
with it, but you appear normal until you're about 5.
Gotcha.
Um, and usually the first sign of it is it's slower and less predictable than Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is this is the milder form of that kind of muscular dystrophy. Um, so it's harder to predict because it reacts a lot slower.
Yeah.
Um, you're first going to notice some generalized weakness in the muscles of the hips, pelvic area, thighs, and shoulders, and the calves are often enlarged. That's usually the first giveaway. My parents noticed my calves were ridiculously big.
Like, looks like he's been just working out,
Yeah,
nothing but his
well, like I
calves.
play football. Like
Yeah.
anybody from American football. That's I'm built like a linebacker.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a little small overview. If you want to know a little bit more about specifics on
Yeah.
that, we'll probably do like an actual video
Oh, I'd
or a
love that.
podcast just on that,
Mhm.
or you can go research
Just
it.
to learn about it,
Yep.
because I think it's important to have that information so that when people ask you, "Well, what is it?" or, "What does that mean?" You say you have MD or someone has MD, Like for me, I had a hard time explaining it to my family. They would say, well, what's wrong with him? Because I'd say he has MD, and they were like, well, what does that mean? You know, um, and like I said, I just had to research it on my own. I didn't have anyone that I could go ask. And with him, he would answer me, but even he didn't have all the answers because we were young. And so we've just been learning more and more about it. And that's the thing. Like we'll preface with that is that we are still learning. And like I said, asked him, is it a hormone or is it a protein? I don't have all the answers. Neither one of us are medical professionals at all, but we're learning. And as we learn, we want to share what we learn with you guys so that we can all grow in that way. I think that's important for people with disabilities or in an interabled relationship. I think it's really important for us to communicate with each other and with other people in the world so that they know um, how to help us. We know how to help each other. And I think just to encourage each other. But I think it's important for us to talk about this stuff. So I'm excited to do it.
Yeah. I think that's what made us want to do this is that we just felt like there was not enough representation, not just for my certain situation, but
Hmm.
um, we know there are YouTube channels out there that are doing the same thing, but I feel like there needs to be more.
Yeah.
Because we know that everybody's situation is different,
Hmm.
and the more the people talk about it, the more people will probably be, um, I guess, normalized to it.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, so I think a question I want to ask you, because it's easy for me to talk about it.
Me?
Yeah, is that what was your first thought when you found out, and what like I guess I want to know what was your first reaction in your mind when you found out I had it, and then what was your reaction when you found out what really was happening?
So, um, it started hanging out with all of our friends that we had. This was before we were even dating. I noticed you walked funny, um, because he's in a wheelchair now, but he used to walk, I wouldn't say normally, but close to normal. Um,
Yeah, just walked on my tiptoes. That's a very
mhm,
common thing.
and sort of just kinda looked like maybe you had a limp or something.
Yeah.
But I noticed that, and you and I weren't super close, and I wasn't around you a ton, but we shared close friends, and so I asked one of our friends, Kelsey, actually, I said, "Hey, I noticed Steven walks funny, and that you had a hard time getting up from a chair," and I said, "Is he okay?" Because I thought you had just been injured. Like, I thought maybe you'd sprained an ankle or, like, hurt yourself, because I was just getting to know you, and she said, "Oh, no, he has MD," and I said, "What is MD?" I literally knew nothing about it. And she said, "Oh, it's just a muscle disease, but he's fine." And I said, "Okay." So I didn't think anything of it because I I don't think I knew enough to be freaked out or anything. Um, but the more I got to know you, the more questions I asked her. And then I mean, I was pretty upfront about asking you
Yeah, you
questions.
were.
But when we started dating and I really basically when I started to like really have feelings for you, I looked it up and unfortunately had one of those scary like WebMD experiences where I read like the worst stuff about muscular dystrophy.
Yeah, he's
And
gonna die in 5
well,
years.
even 10 years
Yeah,
ago, the information was different.
yeah.
And so your life expectancy age back then was way younger than it is now. Now, just it's been what we've been together for 7 some years. Now we know that people with Becker's Duchenne muscular dystrophy do live longer than we thought they did back then. So that's great. But that's what I read back then and it freaked me out. It didn't make me not want to date you, but it did kind of make me go, okay, what am I signing up for? And am I willing to sign up for it? And that's not something I'd ever thought about with any other relationship. But I definitely had to take a step back. And it wasn't personal. It was just, um, am I okay with my relationship being different? And I, again, had really strong feelings for you. So, yes, I was willing to have a different kind of relationship. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it'd be different. And I was okay with that. Um, and I think that's something that a lot of people face and don't know what to do with it. Um, because my friends had differing opinions about it. Even
Yeah,
my family had some
of
interesting
course.
opinions about it. Um, of are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure you want to take care of someone for the rest of your life? You're never going to be able to do this or you're never going to be able to do that. And it was stuff I thought about, but I think when you love someone, none of that matters. Um, because anything can happen at any time. You can be two perfectly abled people, and if one of you gets in a car accident and something happens, you know, that doesn't change that you love them, and hopefully you don't just leave them because they got in a car accident and are paralyzed. Most people stick it out. So for me, it was just something was already different, and I was going into it that way. Um, but I also, as much as it did kind of rub me the wrong way to have people say, "Oh, are you sure you want to, do that?" I also get it, and it wasn't personal. Um, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think you ever want anyone to go through anything difficult, you know? Um, but I do, I mean, it did bother me. Um, but yeah. So, or pretty early on though in our relationship, I would say I had to think about some big, big questions.
Yeah. I think
So,
that's the thing for me is I was prepared for that. But I don't think I thought about that you needed to be prepared for that.
right.
Like, it's not something that I thought, "Oh, man, I should probably warn her that, hey, there's gonna be some scary stuff you're gonna learn about me."
Well, yeah,
Um,
there's like a learning curve. That's the
yeah.
thing. You've lived with this forever, and so you're not
Yeah.
adjusting to it at the rate that I am.
Yeah.
You have like a slower adjustment period because it's like gradual for you, but it was all coming at me at one
Yeah.
time. Um, Having never dated someone with any kind of disability at all, it was just like, whoa, everything is different.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, but I think the thing that we taught your family and that you learned was
mhm.
that, oh, he's still independent.
Yeah,
He's not what everyone pictures as a disabled person. They think, "Oh, well, you're gonna take care of them. You're literally gonna do everything for them."
and
And
in
it's
some
like,
cases, yes,
yes, but that's not to say
that's
that
not
that
everyone.
person doesn't have their own brain and their own independence in a certain way. Like,
Right.
they still like to do things. I still like to have fun.
Well, I
We just
think
have to
that's
adapt our ways of
mhm,
doing things or getting to places. And I
yeah.
think that's the thing is like the stigma is that, oh, they have a disability, so
They're not going to
they're not
contribute
going to be
anything to the
fun. They're
relationship.
not going to be as
Right.
fun as you like as to say that disabled non-disabled people or able-bodied people are more fun
Well, yeah,
because they can just simply walk.
because they can go hiking, because they
Like
can do
it
whatever.
yeah, the idea that if you have a normal body, you're more fun than a disabled person,
Mhm.
which is not always the case.
I don't think it was about fun for a lot of people. Now, there were certain friends that did say that, "Well, I couldn't date someone like that because I wanna be able to do this. I wanna be able to go,
Yeah, it's about all of
backpacking or
me.
whatever."
Yes.
And I mean, whatever. They know themselves, and that's their business. I don't think there's anything wrong with knowing what you're okay with.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I can appreciate the honesty that some
Yeah.
people have, but at some point too, you're also thinking, well, can't you just think about someone else instead of yourself? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not for everyone, I guess
But one
is part of
thing,
it.
the pattern I noticed though, the people who had that opinion, who, well, I couldn't date someone handicapped because I want to be able to do these things in my relationship, were people that hadn't had an actual serious relationship before, and they'd never been in love with someone before. And I think when you're in love with someone, or if you've ever been in love with someone, it's easier to understand, I don't care what it is because I love you. So I think that's just honestly just, you've never experienced that feeling for someone of saying, um, that unconditionalness of love. But for some people, it wasn't even about being the fun aspect of it. It was, you know, you're gonna be doing everything. It's all gonna be on you. It's gonna be an uneven balance. You're gonna get burnout. You're gonna be tired of it. And I mean, burnout is a thing in interabled relationships, but I also think burnout is a thing in regular relationships. Um,
I think that's also just a naive perspective. They're not trying to be rude.
well, they can't imagine how you would contribute. And yeah, like you
Yeah.
said, it's not being rude,
Yeah.
but they're only used to what they've experienced, which I
Mhm.
think is for everything in life. We only know what we know.
Mhm.
And that, again, that's why we're doing this. But um it was you're going to have to chase after the kids. You're going to do the laundry. You're going to do the heavy lifting. And while those things are true, that doesn't mean you don't contribute in 100 different ways. Um, but I think too, it's almost like an immediate invasion of privacy that I learned with people is, well,
They
he's
wanna
not
know
gonna be able to
everything about your
contribute, or
life.
what does he do to help you then, or what is
Yes.
he gonna do? And I would never ask that of an abled couple. I wouldn't say, "Oh, well, I mean, maybe, I guess some people do." Um, but, I'm not gonna go up to someone and be like, "Well, how does your husband contribute to your relationship?" That just seems like private
It's
information.
invasive, yes.
But for us, because our differences are visible, I think people feel like, "Well, I can just ask because I can see
Yeah,
that he's different."
and in some ways, I appreciate the people that ask.
I
Um,
think it's how they ask though
y
that
well, yeah,
makes a
that's
huge
fine, but I'm
difference.
saying that I've had the experience with the people that just stare and the people that just ask. And I would almost rather someone ask,
Yeah.
even if they ask rudely, I can correct them. Hey, maybe don't ask it that way next time.
Right.
But like the people that stare are sometimes the worst because
Mhm.
it's like, we know you want to ask. I
Yeah.
can see you looking at me.
Right. Right.
Just freaking ask. So yeah, I don't know. It's just like you said, it's just kind of an invasive thing at first.
Mhm.
You had to get used to that. I was already prepared for it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think people asked me v almost more personal questions though than they asked you.
well, yeah, because they feel like they're going to offend me,
Yeah.
even
So
though
they
if
were
they got
willing
to know
to
me, they would know better.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were willing to go there with me
Yep.
pretty quick.
And it takes them longer to get to know things because you have to ask me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
I get yeah.
I have to be the middleman for you.
Hmm.
Anyway, so we'll segue from some of that.
So
Is it
one of the questions I
okay?
wanted to ask you, because
Okay.
I can't answer this question, was I know we both use the word disabled because that's true.
Hmm.
I'm able-bodied, you're disabled. Do you mind the words handicap or the being called crippled? Are either of those, do you consider them negative or are they okay?
Um, I don't know. I think it depends on the context, like any word.
Mhm.
Um, hmm.
To me, crippled seems negative.
Well, yeah. I guess yeah, that does. I can see where it has a negative connotation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
disabled,
think that is, yeah, exactly
disabled,
like
and
how people have
handicap
used
kind of
it.
makes more sense to me
Mhm.
because, like in golf, you have the term handicap. It just means like there's a special
Handicap means
thing.
an assistance, right?
Yeah, it's just exactly. It's just
Needing of
something. It's
assistance.
just something. It's not anything negative in my opinion.
Mhm.
But disabled to me makes a lot more sense. Um, because I feel like crippled implies that your body is just messed up. Like it means you're mangled. You have nothing. Like and typically when you hear that word, it's people that like are so severely injured they can't do anything.
Mhm.
And I think
That's how it's been used before a lot, yeah.
disabilities can be invisible now. I mean, there's so many disabilities out there that people don't realize. So
That's true. Crippled is very limiting as far as what it
yes, and there are some
covers.
people that live with like I have a friend with like PCOS, and it like causes her to not be able to stand for long periods of time. So she's ambulatory, but she still uses a wheelchair.
What does ambulatory mean for people who may not know?
It means you can walk.
Okay.
It means you're able
I'm
to get
just
up and down.
yeah.
Yeah. It just means you can get up and down. You're able to move around. Um, so she sometimes has to use a wheelchair, but people would know that looking at her.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And they would judge her for using one. It's just that's why I'm saying. So anyway, that's kind of get off point there. But
No, it yeah.
like I think I don't mind when people say that about me. Um, because I mean it's true. I mean I guess I can't be mad about something that's true.
Mhm.
Um, but I've never had someone go, "Look at that cripple guy." I've never heard
That's
that.
awful.
Like, I've never heard that from
I've
anybody.
heard people say that, not about
I mean, I've
you,
had
but I
hurtful
think growing
nicknames that
up
I don't think people realize were hurtful. Like, they called me Waddles in high school, and while that seems fun
no.
and innocent,
No,
I understand
that's
that.
upsetting.
I think it's you have to know where your friends are coming from. Like,
Yeah.
I think they were trying to be funny and make me feel better, but at the same time, you're like, I don't wanna be
Yeah,
reminded that I
maybe
walk
not, yeah.
funny. Maybe that's not the time.
Mhm.
So, yeah, again, like we said at the beginning, I think it's just intention.
Mhm.
It that's what matters to
And I
me.
think it's totally okay, and we'll say this a lot, that it's okay to ask questions, like, just
Yeah.
ask. But I think it's okay if you're not sure if it's okay to refer to someone as handicapped or crippled or disabled, it's okay to ask them, like, you know, "Do I call you this when talking to other people?" Like, it's okay to ask that. Um, and if it's just important to respect what people are comfortable with. But I think a huge part of any disability and any person with a disability will likely agree with this is that just ask me. If you have a question, ask it. Even if it seems offensive, let's just get it out and talk about it. Um, you know,
Yeah, I
um,
think I'm more offended by assumptions
yes.
than I am by
Oh,
questions.
100%.
Yeah. Don't assume you know what you know about me, just ask me.
Yeah.
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 And that's gonna be something we talk about a lot because that's part of this whole
It's
experience
so common.
is assumptions that things are just not the same.
Mhm.
And as you'll learn and other people will learn, hopefully, that's just not true.
Mhm. So, obviously you've had MD your whole life, but
Yes.
it affects you way more now than it did. And so now it's obvious that you're in a wheelchair so people can see that you're disabled, but before you were in the wheelchair
Yeah.
when it was still more of like almost like a hidden disability, did people treat you differently when they then found out you had MD
Um,
or the same or worse? Like, like did things change when people found out you had a
A
disability?
lot of the things I heard were I never would have known because yes, I walked with kind of like I walked on my toes. So I mean, obviously I walked off balance.
Right.
So you could tell it kind of looked like it just had a limp.
Right.
Like, and it wasn't so bad when I was a teenager, honestly. Like, it's hard to explain to people because I can only explain how normal walking feels to me.
Mhm.
Like, so walking to me was I could walk normal, I could go up hills, steps were really hard, I couldn't run, like I couldn't lift my body weight and stuff. I couldn't bend over and lift things. Like it was things like that. Um, so, but people didn't notice when I was walking, like, because I don't think that's something you inherently want to pay attention to because you don't think about it because it's something you just do as a human. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Um, so I don't think people treated me differently when they found out. They would just say things like, "Oh, I never would have known until you said something," and then they notice when I say something because they are conscious of it.
Mhm.
They're thinking to watch for it.
I think too when you see someone with a limp or that walks funny, you don't assume they have a muscular disease. Like I assumed you had an injury. Um and unless you spend a lot of time with them, you don't know that that's how they are all the
Yeah,
time.
like I said, it looks like a limp. Yeah,
So yeah, it looks like, oh, maybe they hurt themselves or something's just wrong with your legs. Like
yeah.
maybe you just have something wrong.
The most common thing I got was, "What did you do to your knee?"
Mm,
That's everybody thinks it's a knee injury or an ankle injury. That's the two things I get
yeah.
or that I got. I don't get that anymore.
No.
You know, like no, my wheel's just broken. Um, but I think the other half of that is since I've been in a wheelchair, the people that used to not treat me differently treat me differently now, and not in a bad way, but in a way that kind of annoys me. And I don't think they mean to annoy me. Like,
Oh, like doting on you?
well, not just that, but like here at church, we'll go in sanctuary. And they're like, "Oh, let me get the door for you," and I'm like,
Why is that a bad thing?
it's not a bad thing. That's what I'm saying. I don't think they're trying to be that way because they don't realize that that's the independent side of me. Where
But
it's
you
like,
need help with the door.
no, I don't.
I thought you
That
did.
sometimes I
See,
do.
still learning.
But that's like sometimes I do, but I'll ask for it. I think that's the thing is that people don't ask me.
But see,
They just jump to opening the door, and that's
but I
fine.
was taught that if someone is in a wheelchair or
And
has a
that's
cane, you
fine.
open the door
Again,
for them. That's the
again,
polite thing to do.
that is it is, but I think because things have changed so much in 30 years since we've been born, like it's
I'm
been
not 30 yet. Don't
well,
make
I'm
me
not either.
30.
I'm 29, but like you get my point. We grew up in the age where that was yeah, that's true. And I
Yeah.
believe that. That's fine. If you want to be nice, do that. But I'm saying if the person says, "No, I got it," don't continue to try to do that. I think that's my thing is that like I get and honestly since that's happened, people have respected that now.
Okay.
They've seen, "Oh, he can actually do it himself." Like I've found ways to open doors and move it and still get my wheelchair. Like there's ways to do that. I think in the handicap and disabled community though, this is just from watching many videos and having other friends that are, they'll tell you the same thing. Just ask me if you can help me. Normally they'll say, "Yeah, you can help me." But it's the idea of you saying, "Can I?" instead of "Let me do it for you."
But see, I would never think that that's not okay.
And of course not, because you're not thinking to be that way.
But I just think I'm being hopeful.
Yeah, and you probably I know you, so I know you are coming from that perspective.
Yeah.
And most people are. But I'm saying it can be easily misconstrued because you have to remember these people do still want to try to be independent in the ways that they can.
Right. And I get that.
Yeah, so it's like being asked makes you feel human. When someone does something for you, it makes you feel like, oh, they have to do this to help me.
But there's
I
things
think
like,
it's a helpless thing.
no, I get that. But things
Yeah.
like opening the door, like
Yeah.
we're down south. People, like I'm a woman. And so everyone's going to, or not everyone,
Yeah.
men are going to open the door for me 9 out of 10 times. And that's not because I don't think I can. It's just the polite thing to do. And I'm going to open the door for someone, especially someone who's like much older than me. It's a polite thing to do. So I don't think down here, you're not going to get asked if someone can open the door for you. They're just going to do what they think is polite. Now, there are other things, though, that I have seen people do um, that like trying to get food for you or here, man, let me pick that up for you. Things that you can do where they just assume you can't, which again, I totally get. And I've done that too, where I just assume you can't do something and realize that I need to give you a chance to do it, or I need to ask, do you
Yeah.
need help with this?
Yeah.
But that's really hard to learn as someone
is.
who's not used to that because I didn't grow up living with you. So I wasn't taught those things. It is hard to take a pause and think about, okay, am I taking away independence?
Yeah,
You
and
know?
that's honestly part of it is that for some people, that's literally the issue is that they're fine. They want to do things for themselves, but it's when someone takes it away from you unintentionally.
Mhm.
Like, even if it's unintentional, it can still make you go, well, that sucks. I wanted to do that.
Now, I'm tough love, so is it fair, though, to say that people who are disabled, um, you've had to learn how to show grace to people, though, who
Oh,
are
yeah,
trying to help?
obviously.
Like,
Yeah.
I think that is fair that
Yeah.
while someone who is abled, I need to learn what is respectful to you, I think
Mhm.
it's also fair for you to learn to extend grace to people who are trying to figure
Yeah. And
things
I'm
out
not
too.
saying that I don't. That's
No,
not
I
what
know
I was
you do.
trying to
I'm just saying, like,
imply.
that's something I think we both are navigating all the time.
Yeah, that's the tough part because I'm a really nice person. So, like, I'm gonna say
I guess
fine
you
if you
are.
help me, that's fine. Like, well, yeah, we can debate that later. But I just, I don't know. I feel like I've come to the point now where I'm aware of myself now to know what I can and can't do.
Mm,
So when someone just takes it and does it for me, I'm kind of get irritated
yeah.
because it's like I can do that. I promise. If I need help, I'll ask. I think that's the thing is that I think people feel like you just won't ask for help, that you're being stubborn. Like, because I know that's my personality. But like at the same time, if I know I can't do it, I will tell you.
Yeah.
You know that. I mean, I've gotten way better
Well,
at
I
that.
think
But
that's where communication becomes super important.
yeah,
Um, you know, on both ends, but I think you've got to be really clear in your communication of, "Hey, I can do that. Please let me do it. I would like to be independent." And that seems like an overstatement, like of maybe the obvious, but I think that it's important. I mean, you've had to say that with me and I'm your wife and it's like I should get it, but sometimes you just have to go, "Hey, I really want to be able to do that myself. Like let me do that myself." And I have to oh, okay.
yeah, I
You know.
understand that, and it's. I guess we'll just come down to like you said is that both sides have got to learn how to communicate.
Yes.
So my advice to people that aren't disabled: consider if that person needs help or ask them first, um, because that could make them feel human, knowing that you cared
Yes.
and noticed them. Um, and then on the other hand, if they're legitimately, you can tell when someone's being a jerk and someone who's not.
Sure.
So just read the situation.
So, I too think about that for couples who maybe you're interabled and you just started dating, or you're moving into a more serious part of your relationship where you're going to move in together. And maybe the abled person in the relationship is going to start being more of a carer role. Um, where I consider myself, you're like a caretaker for you. Not that you need a full time caretaker, but in that I do
There are some things you have to
help
help me
you a
with.
lot with, personal things. Um, but, like, technically, by definition, I am a quote unquote caretaker. So I do group myself in that category.
No, you are
Um,
like you help me with cooking, sometimes bathroom stuff. I mean,
mhm. Like
that's
personal, yeah.
that's a caretaker thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Basic necessities. It's yeah. Um, so, you know, that's something that we've been able to ease into that, I would say, for our relationship. But for some couples, you're not going to be able to ease into it because the person may be more severely disabled than say you are. Um, But that's something that from watching other couples on YouTube or listening to podcasts or whatever, there's always an adjustment period, and I think that is the time when you really need to develop your own communication, whether that's not like your own language, like different words, but like your own way of communicating with each other, even through nonverbal cues, I think, because I can read you now on your days where I'm able to know, "Oh, he's gonna need my help more." Or there are days where I can tell you're okay and I don't need to offer my help, but I think that you need to really, like, be intentional in your efforts to figure out how to communicate with each other and being really honest and transparent with each other of saying, "This makes me uncomfortable helping you in this way," or, "I don't know what to do," or, "This freaks me out when you fall down and I don't know," like, I think that's okay because I was afraid to say that a lot in the beginning
Yeah.
that I was freaked out, because I didn't want to upset you. Um but I just think it's important to establish that communication early on, and we kinda just figured it out, but I think if we'd been more intentional, it would've been easier. Um
I think that's my advice to anybody is that just be transparent with each other as a couple
mhm,
because that's the only way you're going to be able to function in public if you want to do that.
and I think
Like,
too.
if you're able to do nonverbal communication, definitely do it.
Yeah,
Like, that's changed a lot for us
yeah.
because I can just give you a look and then you'll be okay. I know what I need to
Yeah,
do.
yeah, in public especially, like, you don't wanna have to shout across a room of people, "Hey, I need help, I dropped something," because that would be embarrassing for me. I'm always aware of where he is in a room, and you're pretty much and I think especially when you're dating, you're kind of that way anyway. You got eyes
Yeah,
for each
you're
other.
figuring each other out. Yeah.
Yeah. But that is something that now we've learned. If I am far from him in a room, I want to be able to see him. Or one thing we do, we always make sure each other has our cell phone so that if he goes to the restroom somewhere and needs help, like where he can't reach his pants to pick them up or needs help reaching the paper towels where he can't reach them, whatever, he can text me and I can get to him pretty quickly. Um, like if we're separated. So that seems simple, but like that's just something we learn to do is keep our cell phones so that we can text each other across the house or whatever if he needs help. But yeah, I think it's super important to be able to look at each other and go, "Oh, he needs my help." So that he doesn't have to shout across the room and make a scene because other people get weird. "Oh, I'll help you, I'll help you." And
Yeah, I
you
think
don't want
that's
strangers
something
to help you with certain things.
that's another good thing to talk about. But I'll let you finish first.
That was pretty much it. Just that.
Yeah, it's like I think that's something is that your family has often tried to say, "Let me help you," and
Yeah.
it's not. They always seem offended when I'm like, "No,
Well,
you
because they
can't,"
love you, they just
and
wanna
that's
help.
fine. Like
Yeah.
I know
It's
that's
always
the
good
case,
intentions.
but it's hard to explain to people your mindset of, "No, I have my systems and I have to do it this
Yeah.
way," and it's hard to explain that to them because you and I have just worked out like a system, so
Mhm.
we know. All right, if this is hurting, this is how you need to do this.
Mhm.
Okay, if you fell down, this is the best way we know you can get up.
Yeah.
You needed something this height that you can get your butt to and get on. Like,
To sit on, yeah.
and they don't think, "Oh, I can just brute force." Like, I'm kind
Right.
of a big boy right now. Um,
Yeah.
but
And I
also
th
it's hard because like me, my legs don't work. So even if someone pulled me up, my legs are jelly. They're not
you
gonna
can't
just
brace yourself to
I can't
stand.
brace myself and push up with my back muscles.
Right.
So like it's just a waste of time. It's just gonna
And
hurt
I
me.
think that then becomes my responsibility
Yeah.
or the able-bodied person's responsibility to communicate with your family. Like, he shouldn't have to constantly explain himself, and he can if he wants to, he's a big boy.
Yeah, I don't care.
But, like, for me with my family, I'm the one and of course my family, they're gonna come to me and ask me because I'm their child or their grandchild or whatever. They feel more comfortable asking me those questions anyway, which so it works out. But it is my responsibility and I have found myself over time just saying, "Hey, um, when we were at your house that time and you tried to help him up, it just kind of made things more uncomfortable. Maybe it made him feel bad or made me feel bad." And if they love you, they're going to listen to you and be receptive. And my family, I know you say they get offended, and in the moment, I think they are maybe have an emotional reaction, but typically they're not actually offended. They feel bad because they can't help and they want to help. But um, again, it's communication. And so you have to have that communication with your family, or if it's friends, or maybe someone like if you have roommates, someone who lives with you, it's okay to say, actually, we don't want your help. We just are going to do it ourselves. We're going to do it this way. This is what works for us. And you may have to explain why, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Um, you know, but be again, and that's on me. I then have to too have part of that grace I was telling you about. And you have to be patient with people. And it's really hard to unlearn wanting to help someone and to unlearn quote unquote like southern politeness. Um, but it is an unlearning because that is ingrained in us from such an early age of, oh, help them, open the door, pick that up for them, do this and that for pregnant people, for older people, for women, for disabled people, whoever. We're taught to do these things. But, it's okay to unlearn it and talk about it, and it's okay to be uncomfortable about it. That's a big part, especially in relationships. Um, it's okay to feel uncomfortable, and you can love someone and be totally obsessed with them and think they're hot and also think that something is gross at the same time, and I think that's okay. Um, especially if when it comes to helping each other, maybe with hygiene, with things like that. We have 3 children, so I also had to learn the hard way, like, basically, like, it was on me when I was pregnant and couldn't do things and needed help
It
tying
was
my
hard.
shoes,
Yeah.
or I needed help, you know, with whatever. I learned what it felt like to be really uncomfortable and for him to see me in a really vulnerable way. Of course, I had a natural childbirth for my last child, and that's not pretty, and um I mean, it's a beautiful experience, whatever, but it's gross. Like, it's the things our body does when you're having a baby are gross, and he was there. So he saw me at my grossest, at my most vulnerable, that's super emotional, super intimate, and so it helped me understand what it feels like to let someone in on those really personal, sometimes yucky moments, and so, I think that's part of loving each other, is being okay with that and being willing to go there for the other person. Um, but it's and we make jokes out of it. We try to make light of it when things are hard or difficult or uncomfortable. Um, because that's just both of our personalities. But things are weird sometimes, and I think that's just okay. And I don't know why we're taught that it's not okay. But bodies are gross, and people are difficult, and sometimes, like, I remember when you one of the first times you really fell down in front of me, because his knees would basically just give out and he would just hit the floor like he passed out, but he didn't, but his body would just go. And that's scary for that to happen,
Yeah.
but I would not know what to do, and I'm the kind of person that I will just talk or I will laugh awkwardly. Like, I don't know what to do in awkward situations, and so I would just be really weird, and we'd end up laughing. I'd sit on the floor next to him while he was on the floor, and we'd just laugh. But we had to learn that, it's okay to just feel uncomfortable about it
Yeah.
and
There's
to
nothing
even
wrong with
be
that.
upset about it. And
You're allowed to be a human.
yeah, I don't think that part ever gets
It's never going to be easy.
it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, because things are also always changing. I think with most disabilities, they're gonna most progress or most change over time. So different, you're gonna find suddenly there's something new that you're uncomfortable about. Um, but
Yeah. Trust me, when someone has to help you in the bathroom, you learn real quick.
yeah.
It's uncomfortable, but
Mhm. And that's the thing. Like, let's just be real, and that's part of having a disability for most disabilities. And so that's the kind of stuff we're going to continue to talk about. Is really candid, maybe taboo things about helping with hygiene, helping in the bathroom, not details. We're not going to try to gross you guys out. But that's reality, and I wish that not I don't think I needed to know that in the beginning, but it would be nice if I'd had someone to go to and say, "Hey, all of a sudden he needed my help in the bathroom, and that's fine, but it kind of freaked me out." And that person could have been like, "Hey, that's normal. It's okay to feel freaked out. It's okay
yeah,
to be
it is.
awkward.
Yeah.
You've never done that for someone
Yeah. The
before."
first time it happens, it's weird.
We just figured it, but it would have been just nice to have someone go, "It's okay. It's okay to feel weird." Um,
Or laugh with you about
or
it. Be like, I remember when I
exactly.
had to do that. Yeah.
Right.
Like,
And I think
here's
for
my thing though.
you,
But here's my
yeah.
thing. We're so eager to talk about sex with each other. Everyone is.
Yeah.
And you
The
see each
whole world
other's,
talks
you
about
see
it.
your whole, you see everything. Okay. We're all adults here
Yeah.
for the most part, I'm
Bodies
sure.
everywhere, man.
Um, so for me, it's like, why would you be freaked out by why I get you're wiping someone's butt, but like,
You're putting it all out there.
but I'm saying
Okay.
I don't care. It's my reality, so I got to talk about it, right? Like
Yes,
sometimes I
yes.
need help, and that's
It's the
okay.
first episode talking about it.
But no pun intended. I just I don't know. I just feel like if you're willing to do those things, it
Yes.
shouldn't be so uncomfortable
Mhm.
the other way.
No,
You've
I
already seen
agree.
everything.
Right? That's true.
It's just in a
If you're
different way.
intimate with each other, then yeah, it is intimacy, and that sounds weird to compare it to it, because we think of intimacy and we think of sex, but
Yes, you have to be really trusting in both ways.
that's exactly right. It's vulnerable. That's the most vulnerable you're gonna be. But I think too, and I've said it before, you know, when you're married for 100 years, when you're 90, 100 years old, you might need help in that way, and I'd be willing to do it when we're old, so why would I not be willing to do it now? That's just kinda how I look at it. And so it's weird, but it's not so weird anymore. It's just kinda normal. And that's the thing too, everything eventually just becomes normal. It becomes part of your normal, and your normal is gonna be different than everyone else's normal. Um, and that's okay.
Yeah, you had a question here about
Yes.
is our relationship different? How is it different? We kind of touched on that, I think.
Mhm.
Um, and I want to get to that. We'll probably do that in another episode so we can actually like dive into
Yeah.
like misconceptions that we went through.
Yes.
Um, but I think we probably need to close on this one. Do we know others personally with muscular dystrophy or other disabilities? Do you
Okay,
personally?
that was gonna be my thing. Um, I I don't think I know anyone with an actual, like, disability. I know people who have had injuries so that they're in a wheelchair, which is a disability, don't get me wrong, but I mean, like, a disease. Like, I don't know anyone who was born with a
So you
handicap.
mean a genetic disorder
Yes.
or disease?
I've known people who have become disabled later in their life, um, which is a totally valid thing. And yes, that is a disability. I've certainly never known anyone else with MD. Even to this day, you're the only person I know with muscular dystrophy that I'm aware of. Um, and that's the thing too. I don't know. There could be people I know that have a disability, like a physical disability, but I don't know about it. I'm sure I know people with mental disabilities. because technically I think like anxiety and stuff is considered
It can be
a mental health
debilitating, so yes.
disability. Yeah. So I know people with
Mental
those
health
kinds
is
of
real, so
things.
yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I don't know if it's considered like by
It
the government a disability. Um
Well, I don't know. I'm sure there's cases of that, sure.
right, because it can affect your whole life.
I mean, it would make sense.
Yeah. But no, not that I know of. You're the only person I know. And at our church, for an example, you're the only person that comes in a wheelchair.
True.
And we go to a church that, has anywhere from 100 to um, over 300 people on our like holidays. And that's a lot of people. And Steven will be the only one in a wheelchair, unless like we've had people again who like had a leg surgery and they came in a wheelchair for a
Yeah.
week or two. But Steven is our only like quote unquote handicapped person
Yeah.
at church and that huge amount of people.
Yeah.
So that says a lot. And the reason I wanted to ask that question is just to put it into perspective. Um, because if I'm in a group of 100 people at any time and there only may be one disabled person, then that person is an extreme minority. And that means that there's probably not a lot of assistance and awareness of that person, assistance for that person, and then awareness of that person. So, because everything in our society is catered to the able person because we're the majority. Um, and so that's a big part of why we're doing this too, is because I don't know anyone else. Like, I don't have any friends or anything like that who are in a caretaker role. And so I don't have anyone to talk to that understands in that way. My friends are amazing and they do let me talk about this stuff, but it's different to talk to someone who gets it. Um, on the days that it's hard or my anxiety is high and I'm having like fear-based thoughts about um, Steven passing away or just bad things happening, because that's also part of this that people don't like to talk about. But, I think that, if you don't have that in your life, sometimes you just need to be that for other people. And so that's what we want to do. And so as we wrap this up, I want to kind of wrap up by saying if you guys um, don't have anyone like you, that you wish you had friends like you in an interabled relationship, or maybe you're just a disabled person who doesn't have a relationship yet, it will happen. It's possible. We'll talk about that too. But if you need friends in a relationship like you, or if you need friends who get it, who are disabled, um, we're here. We'll be friends. Like, let's talk. If you need to talk about stuff, if you have questions, please leave comments. Ask the questions you want in the comments or message us. If we see a question that's interesting, we will talk about it in an episode. But we're a safe place. And we want to be a little community for each other. We want to be that. So for disabled people, for caretakers, let's talk. Let's help each other. Let's show each other that we're not alone. And even though we are a minority, um, we're more common than we probably realize.
Yeah, we are. The world's big. So
Mm-hmm.
um we're just lucky to live in a country where it's more acceptable.
Yes.
Um yeah. Yeah, I just think that I don't know more people with my personal disability, but
Mm-hmm.
my goal of doing this is to do that, to find more people with it. Um
I would like to find more people close to our age
yeah,
too.
but I have started making friends with people that are in wheelchairs. Shout out Mike. You know who you are, buddy. And it's helped a little bit. So um don't be afraid to reach out to people. I don't know if you're listening to this on podcast or if you're on YouTube, but like Ali said, just leave comments, like it, let us know what you want to hear in the future. Give us topics, questions.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be happy to answer it. If you just need a encouraging comment, just let us know. That's what we're here for. So yeah, I don't know how to wrap this up.
In the description of this podcast and of this episode, there will be an email that you can write to write questions. You can tell us your story, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So I'll leave that in the description. We don't know what it is yet because we are still naming this. So
You'll know what the name is when you're watching this.
That's true. Never mind. I was going to say they can help us with the name. But yeah, there will be a name at this point. But yeah, there's going to be an email in the description of the video and a description of the podcast for you to reach out to us anytime.
And I'll also put links to the MDA
yes
stuff that we talked about earlier.
And you know what? I think we should link some of our YouTubers that we like to watch.
Definitely, we'll do that.
Talk about disabilities. So click on the links. Follow these other people. They've been really helpful to us and really encouraging. So.
Yep. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.